the very first patient that made a history, and the medical historians are saying, was this case in Switzerland where they said the patient had a simply bad surgery by the best surgeon in the world, and if the cells would not have worked, the woman would have died right in there. Reversely, she lived 21 years. Okay, and the situation was like this with many conditions. All right. Now, this Professor Nihans became so famous worldwide, that no medical doctor alive had such a medical practice like him. Kings, queens, presidents, prime ministers, you name it, everybody was, one of the famous patients was the Konrad Adenauer, which name doesn't tell you anything, but Konrad Adenauer was the first prime minister of Germany after 1945, after the Second World War, at the time when Germany was destroyed. He took the job, he was 73 years old. Can you imagine walking into the hell, at that age? And you know how many years he did it? 21 years. Until he was 94 years. You know how? Every year, 1 week set aside for cell therapy. He simply survived on that. And this is a well-known fact. We can go into many others. Another was famous Charlie Chaplin. Charlie Chaplin married, he was 57 years old and married a woman 28 years old. And I guess he needed help, so he knew about the Nihans, so he bought a house next to him. So they became neighbors and friends. And when Madame Chaplin delivered child number 8, and this is a true story, it was written up, I didn't, she went to the neighbor and said, "Professor, please, stop giving him those cells. I'm tired." And Charlie Chaplin, you know that he made his last film, he was 84 years old. It was called King in Hong Kong. And in his classical way, he wrote a script, he directed it, he played it, a title role, and he made the music. At that age, he was still capable to pull it off. Cell therapy. Okay, and we can go through many other things. So that was, in reality, one has to say that according to German statistics, when we talk about the 5 million patients being treated, 4 million out of 5, meaning 80% of patients, had the ultimate reason to look for it was aging. Every aging person has other problems besides aging. Has a heart trouble or this trouble, also has to be addressed. But the ultimate stimulus to go for it, was issues of aging. You are looking at one of them too. I'm still very very active. I run all over the world all the time and so on and so forth. I know I couldn't do it without the help of the cells. My opinion is one has to do it every 3 years, okay, in order to stay alive. The truth of the matter is that according to the German statistics, when it comes to aging, it's a situation where 90% of patients will notice clearly the benefit of the treatment. 10%, is sort of after first treatment, plus minus. They are uncertain. All right. But the 90% will clearly. And I tell you one thing. Once you're the second treatment, nobody needs to tell you when to go for the third one. In my personal opinion, I'm coming down 3 years, I'm starting to kind of slow down, signal, let's have another one. Okay. In Germany, they believe it has to be done every year, but cells were not exactly prepared the same way as ours, and I believe that that this preparation of cells that we do is more effective, that the cells, are more alive, just because the way they are made, you see. That we actually take the material from the cells and we launch a primary tissue culture, which lasts 11 days. I have to say, Soviets were the ones, who figured this out. Okay, all right. That buys you time, because after 11 days, when you are collecting the cells and you put them in the vial, in that vial you can keep the cells for 3 days. There is enough oxygen and food in it, so you can actually transport the cells to different places. The German method required that the patient comes to the clinic and cells are made right then and there. But overall, particularly as the clinic would be growing larger in size, there was more and more delay from the moment that the pregnant sheep was euthanized until such time that actually patient received the cells. Niehan said a law of the land is 2 hours, but in reality, it kept on stretching, and with each passing minute, the cells are in worse and worse shape as a result of, and it never happens with our case, because we can deliver cells anywhere in less than 24 hours. So the patient, under worst circumstances, will receive the cells in 36 hours from the moment it's released, from the laboratory. Okay, and so the cells are in perfectly healthy, vital condition. So as a result of it, we believe that we have better results from this. I'm not trying to be critical of the pharmaceutical industry, but I made this statement many times, very loud and clear. You see, the pharma industry is trying to suppress this therapeutic method. Don't understand quite why, because in reality, since this therapeutic method from the very beginning was meant to be treatment of incurable and untreatable diseases, that pharma industry really cannot offer anything. That's why they are incurable or untreatable. There is no therapy. It's every medical textbook you go through neurology, the chapter on treatment will be 3 lines long, and always the same wording. There is no known treatment. Okay, now, under such circumstances, I don't know why the pharma industry is so upset about trying to do something for patients like that. They are not losing a dime as a result of it. But for some reason, they simply are trying to kill this therapeutic method, which I always jokingly say. You see, I unfortunately lived 21 years under communism. The country I was born, ultimately when I was 5.5 turned communist, and I ran away from it when I was 26. Okay, now communists hated doctors because we were the intelligentsia, we were the brainy ones, and we were enemies of the regime, because communism is a regime of laborers and poor farmers, you see. So we were, exactly on the other side of the. But I have never been, crucified as a physician, because the communist bosses were very smart. They knew when they get sick, who is going to take care of them? The laborers or farmers, They knew that they had to come to us. So ultimately, they were always very friendly to us. And, and we had kind of good relationship. Now, I don't know what the pharma industry thinks, if they wipe out, this kind of therapy, and if they turn all the physicians into slaves that are good for only one thing, to write as many prescriptions as possible, for newer and newer drugs, what ultimately happens when president of the country gets bad? Do you know that Ronald Reagan had cell therapy done by Germans? Because when he was shot in his belly, and then they found out he has polyps of his colon, Nancy ruled, his wife, Rani needs cell therapy. And Rani had it right in Walter Reed Army General Hospital, done by Germans. Okay, so, and you know how many Americans have been treated in Europe? The list is known. 250,000, of Americans was treated in Europe, mostly in Switzerland. All right, and these are not small potatoes. And Mr. Joe the plumber, that you saw on television. I'm not trying to be offensive. These were, creme de la creme of Hollywood, and the music composers and famous American writers and all of that. So the point is, people simply, believe in this therapy, and it has helped them. You see. Can you imagine that, that aging writer, wants to continue to work and it doesn't work anymore? Why wouldn't he have cell therapy? Etc., etc. Yeah. Last famous man that made headlines was Frank Sinatra. He was very upset because it got leaked out that he was treated, so he sued the clinic for leaking out the news to the journalists.